thank you so much for doing this. I really did enjoy the movie.
Oh,
Uh,
thanks. Thank you.
but
Thanks for watching and thanks for having me. Yeah.
yeah, but when I finished watching it, it was like 1 in the morning, and I thought maybe I should tweet him like in the morning.
I don't get alerts on my phone anymore for Twitter. So yeah, I have to like
uh,
log in to see. And yeah, there you were. So that was very nice.
Thank you. Hello, and welcome to Horror Obsessive, or my YouTube channel, depending on where you're watching this. I'm Jamie Lee, and I am here with Mike Zara, the writer of the film Letters to Satan Claus. Letters
Hi.
to Satan. Hi. Letters to Satan Claus is a Syfy original film that premiered on December 19th, 2020. The film centers around Holly Frost, a news reporter who wrote a letter to Santa as a child. However, a simple spelling mistake sends her letter to Satan instead. Satan fulfilled her Christmas wish with a wicked twist, turning Holly against everything Christmas related. Now Holly has to return to her hometown of Ornaments to report on their annual Christmas celebration, and Satan isn't far behind. So if people want to see Letters to Satan Claus, either for the first time or just to watch it again, how can they see it?
Yeah, that it's on the Syfy app now. So I'm not sure when you're posting this, but I think we're airing twice on Christmas. you know, perfectly set there. But yeah, the app is where you can watch it anytime. And I tried it out myself, and anybody can watch it on the Syfy app. I guess they give you like credits, so you get like 3 credits, and so this would be 1 credit. But if you have cable, you just log in with your subscriber ID, and then you're good to go and can watch it over and over and over again.
That's great. Is there going to be some kind of is there going to be some kind of DVD release or on-demand release that you know of?
I have no idea. I have not heard anything. There's been some people asking on Twitter, and I mean, hopefully Syfy listens. But yeah, no, I'm not sure. All I know is that the app is where it's at.
Great. Yeah, I definitely streamed it on the app as well, so I can vouch if you have a cable provider or satellite provider. I think most of them work with Syfy. And if there is a DVD release, we've got the cover art right there.
Yep.
So
She's
that's
right
perfect.
there.
Yes. So let's dive into talking about the film and the process that went into making it. How did this whole thing come about?
Sure. So I had a general meeting with Syfy, probably a year and a half ago, and the executive Josh Van Hout and I, we just really clicked. We have very similar tastes. We both kind of grew up reading Christopher Pike novels, sort of the lesser known Dean Koontz or R.L. Stine. And yeah, we just kind of bonded. And I was watching a Hallmark movie, Christmas movie, one night late, as I tend to do. And I just had this sort of aha Oprah moment where I was like, there should be a horror movie that is a parody of the Hallmark Christmas movies, and just, make it really bloody and fun and throw in all the tropes. And I brought that idea to Josh because I knew he loved Hallmark movies, and marriage was made. So that's kind of how it happened. I will say the original idea I had was sort of a slasher, kind of like a Friday the 13th, but in this Hallmark town. And what Josh and I kind of collaborated on is making it sort of more of a creature feature. And I kept looking at the word Satan and Santa, and I'm like, there's something there. And yeah, that's how Satan Claus came to be. So
Yeah. And just like you were talking about there, Letters to Satan Claus contains numerous references to everything Christmas and many references to and ribbing directed toward a certain TV station that airs Christmas romantic comedies this time of year.
yeah.
So some are a little more obvious, like the name Holly Frost, and some are
Mhm.
a little more subtle. Like on a second viewing, I noticed the baristas who are named Candace and Cameron, and they wear berets.
That's right. Very good. Yeah, no, there's Easter eggs or Christmas eggs everywhere in the movie. It was more for like me. Like I was tickled by like, the wine bar is called Wit and Wagner, which is, two actresses from these holiday movies last names. And yeah, we just kind of threw them everywhere. And yeah, but again, I love the Hallmark Christmas movies. I think they're obviously addictive. People love them too, and this was my way of getting to write one. Because it's more my jam to throw in some horror. So
Yeah. Well, that took care of my question about how the references started getting into the script. So, what
yeah.
are some of the, whether they're references or jabs or other kind of gags that were in the film that you're most proud of?
Um, well, let's see. There's a shout out to a maybe less liked former Christmas movie star. And the character name that we have is Aunt Becky, played by Juno Rinaldi. And she's sort of the Holly's loving and has just lost 162 pounds. I think it was 162 pounds. It's her aunt who is a baker in the town, and she owns Aunt Becky's bakery. So that's the one that's like the most sort of obvious and like prominent. But yeah, the Candace and Cameron with their berets is another one that I love. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I mean every single name. Danica the mayor, that's for Danica McKellar. um, our cameraman Sam lost his wife Lacey, who died of cancer, and he doesn't specify which kind of cancer. When Holly asks, she just died of cancer, because that's how general they usually are in these movies. And that was for Lacey Chabert, obviously. And yeah, just little things there. I actually used to know Taylor Cole years and years ago, when we were much younger, and so I gave her a little shout out. I adore her. So yeah, those are some of the ones that I like.
And so, what are some of the ones that you might want to point out that you think people might miss on our first
Hmm.
viewing, but
Hmm.
you would really love for them to see it, whether it's a gag or a reference?
I mean, the sort of no kissing as sort of like a rule is very much the Christmas movie trope of, not getting too close. I mean, again, we tried to like flip the tropes on their heads a little bit. So Holly doesn't just have one love interest, will they, won't they? She has like five. And that's sort of so I really did try to it is sort of everything and the kitchen sink in this movie. So she has a black love interest potentially. She has a trans love interest, potentially, uh, who is also Jewish. You know what I mean? Like I and again, I feel like this year the movies have become more inclusive at Hallmark and Lifetime and the Paramount TV, obviously, which is amazing. When I was writing this, there were no sort of uh, sort of diverse stories happening, so I was really leaning in. So it is kind of nice to see that they actually now have, they don't have like a story gay, plot on the Hallmark Channel, but maybe next year, who knows. But yeah, so I was playing with the tropes and then like just trying to flip them on their head. So I guess that's what I would want people to take away, is that I, lovingly poke fun of it, but also am trying to kind of push, you know seeing people like me. I'm openly gay, and seeing, yeah, if a kid when like a 16-year-old kid who's sort of grappling with their sexuality sees two men on screen fall in love under a Christmas tree with snow falling down, like great. And that if that makes him or her feel better, awesome, you know. So that's what I'm really most proud of. It's a very queer film.
Yeah, I did notice that you were interviewed in another article about how LGBTQ plus themes are finding their way into these Christmas and holiday movies now.
Mhm.
So yes, you had the trans actor, and was the character also trans?
So that literally that casting Javier, it's spelled like Xavier, but I believe it's Javier. I have not met him in person. We've exchanged messages on Instagram, but he was cast uh, just solely because that's who they wanted to cast. I originally had the joke was that she ends up with the only Jewish guy in Ornaments, and I had originally written him as an Asian American guy, and I think they just did a blind casting and they came up with Javier, which is awesome. So yeah, no, it wasn't originally for like specifically for a trans actor or a trans person, but I was really happy that they cast him. And but yeah, we like I said, we have a B story that's a gay romance, and our lead actress Karen Knox is openly queer, and our director Emma Jean Sutherland, she's openly bisexual and non-binary. And Emma's idea was to make Satan Claus non-binary, which I have to give her full credit for that. But which I haven't seen in a movie before. So we're a little sci-fi movie, but we were trying to do something different, and hopefully that came across. So yeah.
Yeah, I did want to ask about that because that was really interesting. You usually don't see that in a film. You usually don't, it's usually just a male Lucifer or male devil, whatever
Right.
they want to call him. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, the story behind that, and again, that was all to Emma, but I wrote it as, you know, a a guy. That's what I pictured. I pictured like a very, and I think the description was like a 6'4" gremlin-like creature that was emaciated, and always with the Freddy Krueger is like one of my all-time favorite um, villains, and so with the quippy one-liners, like that's what I had imagined. And then they cast Jana Peck, who's a woman, who's an actress in Canada, and so I was like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, so let's lean into that. And one of the lines that I had in a draft was Holly saying, Satan's a woman. That's so messed up. Like just really being like, really? Like she's a woman? Oh my God. But and then the decision came from Emma to make Satan Claus non-binary. And so yeah, that all the pronouns changed and everything. And again, it's very subtle. But it's something that that Emma felt strongly about. And so yeah, it's interesting. I haven't really seen a lot of people talking about it, and maybe just because it's subtle, but it's interesting. I mean, the voice is not, stereotypically male. I get
mhm.
that's what I'll say. But I just think Jana, we did like a Zoom party with the cast, and she just said how much fun she had and like freedom she had being in that mask and costume, that she just felt like she could do anything, and she really did. She seemed like she was having a lot of fun, and that was not an easy process. And with the makeup and prosthetics and these contacts, she got them stuck in her eye when I was on set. I visited Canada before we shut down during COVID, but before that, I went to set and she had trouble like with her contacts, and they had to take her to an optometrist, and it was awful. But yeah, so she's a real trooper.
Yeah. As someone who has worked haunted houses and scare acting, yeah, there's something about, the heavier the costume, the heavier the makeup, the freer you kind of
Right.
feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's hard to tell, any obvious signs of gender when you've got all that on. So
Yeah.
it really just like frees you up more.
Yeah, it was cool. It was very cool. And I kind of like that it's sort of like Satan Claus is not it's just Satan Claus. You know what I mean? It's not, you don't think about male, you don't think about female. It's just it's its own, they are their own, thing, and that's really cool.
Yeah, and I did notice some of the subtleties where some people do refer to Satan as he, but Holly has a particular line where she says they. Um,
Mhm.
and I noticed other kind of nods to the gender spectrum where she says snow men, snow women, and snow theys.
Yeah, that's something that I put in, that was in the first draft of the script. I yeah, it's so funny. I mean, you did like, for me, I'm just like, it's such an instinctual writer. Like I don't really even think about it. I'm just like whatever ghost comes in me and just writes. And that came out, and I'm happy that it stayed, because I do think it kind of reflects what we, you know, are trying to say subtly. But yeah, the snow they is they that's always been in there, and I'm so happy it stuck. So I'm glad you saw that and recognized that.
Yeah, well, ghosts and Christmas do have a history, so that works.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Uh, and I did kind of want to ask, I noticed just trying to look into the history of this film that you were filming in March. So I was curious how the pandemic affected filming, if at all, because it was right at the beginning and it was in Canada. And if it
Yeah,
was in the US, it was a very different situation.
sure. So we started, obviously we started shooting in March, early March, for Letters of Satan Claus in Canada. I flew out there for the first week, and that's when the coronavirus was really starting to hit the papers, and people were starting to get nervous. The set was very safe. There was hand sanitizer everywhere. And I actually got a like sort of frantic text from my sister, who was like, you need to get home. Like Trump, they're saying that Trump might shut down the borders and blah, blah, blah. And, and, and I started to kind of get concerned too, just kind of seeing the news and everything. And so I actually left, and the next day they shut down production. So yeah, my sister was right. I'll go on record saying that. And they didn't shut the borders down, but I mean, I guess Canada didn't want any Americans in, which rightfully so after that. But yeah, so we shut down. It was very scary because we didn't know if we would come back or anything like that. And then in June, I think it was, I got the call that they needed some rewrites. There was some recasting happening, and so um, we were officially going to be back. And then I believe I think it was mid-July that we started reshooting and going back to set. And I obviously didn't go because of all the restrictions and staying safe myself. Um, but we were the first production that I heard of. Maybe a couple other Hallmark movies in Canada, but other Hallmark movies. We're not a Hallmark movie, but yeah, we were one of the first companies to go back, and I have to say, Emma and Blue Ice and Syfy, everybody was really safe, and I was getting like DMs and private texts from set, and everybody's in shields and rehearsing, and but they did it very safely, and honestly, I've said this before in an interview, but like my Christmas miracle was that this thing got in the can before, we didn't even know if we were going to hit the Christmas release, and we did. So that was our tiny little parody movie made it, and that's what I'm most thankful for this Christmas. So
Yeah, wow. That's filming in two completely different worlds. What month
yeah,
were you
and
left to? Yeah.
it was snowing. It was actually snowing in March, and then they were in the middle of summer, and yeah, it didn't look very pleasant that they had to like sort of wear sweaters and pretend like they were cold, and like melting themselves like a snowman in July. But
Yeah. Do you know what there was left to film?
oh, I mean, we had only had 5 days in the can
Oh,
in March, so
so you
the
had
rest of the
most of it.
yeah, most of it was filmed in July and August. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I do kind of have to ask, amongst all the Christmas references, you also had that little thread about the painting hippo, and I'm curious if that was kind of a sideways reference to I want a hippopotamus for Christmas.
That's so funny that maybe the ghost that writes my stuff. I'm going to sound like a total crazy person by saying that. I'm half joking.
What
But
writer doesn't sound like a crazy person?
and right.
We all
During
do.
2020, we're all
Yeah.
crazy, right? We've all
Yeah.
lost our minds. But I maybe subconsciously, but um, no, I just wanted something ridiculous and like stupid, and the sort of like puff piece, which I guess that's more of like a throwback to like my childhood. I feel like everything is like doom and gloom now, but or like the car chase or whatever, robbery at gunpoint or whatever. But I wanted to like just do something super stupid that the newscasters would be more interested in talking about, and cheery, and sort of this sort of like fake, a different side of fake news with a painting hippo. So yeah, it's just stupid. And I have to say, I'm obsessed with those newscasters they cast. They're just like so perfect, and like very Fox News, with like their smiles and just how horrified they were of Holly. I love that casting.
Oh yeah, they were really funny together. Dean and Christine.
Yeah.
They even rhyme.
Dean and Chris, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What were some of the easiest scenes to write?
Well, my favorite scene to write is Aunt Becky's death. So, spoiler, if you're
Yeah,
gonna watch
right.
it, you don't want to pause it and go watch it. But and if you're not gonna watch it, that's fine too. It involves, like I said, Aunt Becky lost a lot of weight because she's a baker, and she stopped eating her cookies because she started to name them, treating them like they're all her children, and she'd never eat her children, right? And the power of Satan Claus kind of propels her, and has her want and need a bite of Angel Jennifer, one of the cookies' wings, and then Angel Jennifer starts to cry, and then all the cookies start to cry, and that's when Aunt Becky has her death. That was my most fun scene to write, and I just was like, how are they going to make this? Are they going to make this? Are they going to make me rewrite this? And they didn't, and they shot it, and they did not put Satan Claus in a chef's hat, which was also a nod to Freddy Krueger, but yeah, they didn't do that, which is fine. But there are references to the Great British Baking Show or the Great British Bake Off, or there's so many different alt titles for that show, but which is something that I've obsessed with. So they kept those, and I think they added a couple, like the Star Baker line was not mine. I think that was improvised by Jana. But so yeah, that was the one, and then the running gag of vaping teens
Yeah.
people seem to respond to on Twitter, which made me happy. When I was writing it, there was so much like controversy with the vaping, and that they were, promoting them and targeting ads towards teenagers, and so that's, I don't know, vaping teens just stuck in my head, and I was like, what's like the naughtiest thing that would ever happen in ornaments, and that's teens that vape. So yeah, so those are like, I mean, look, it was I, the shows that I've worked on are not campy and over the top. Like, I've worked on crime shows for my whole career, but the stuff that I write for myself, or the pilots that I've sold, are very me, and very sort of like, I call them bloody bubblegum. That's kind of the genre I call it. But Letters to Satan Claus was by far the most bonkers thing I've ever written. And so it was literally a delight to write. So, and the fact that it got made is still amazing to me. So
Yeah, when I watched it, it was pretty late at night when I was watching it, but I actually said out loud, somebody had a lot of fun writing this, because I was catching all these little lines that just seemed like throwaways, but were just things like, oh, a hot air balloon fell on her. Oh, the vaping teens vandalized the Jewish guy's house by putting Christmas lights on it.
right.
And I'm just watching this thinking someone had fun with this.
Yeah, no. And I wasn't stoned, by the way. That's just my weird humor. But yeah, no, it was a blast. It really was a blast.
Yeah. Uh, so, what were some of the easiest parts of just the entire process?
I mean, it was a pretty smooth process. Just Syfy was really wonderful. Blue Ice was great. Um, I'm not sure how to answer that, just because it was, it was pretty easy, which is not normal. It really isn't when you're typically when you're dealing with a network and a studio and all of that. There are a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and things kind of get watered down, or you have to take notes that you may not necessarily think are, right for the piece. But no, it really, yeah, I don't know if I'll have a a, a situation like this again. It really was just, it was easy.
Well, then we'll just have to hope Syfy calls you again.
I know.
Yeah.
Please call me Syfy. No, I love them there, and Josh has been incredible, and it's just fun. I feel like Syfy, there's a freedom which, a lot of places don't give, and I think that's a really desirable thing for writers and artists, and is sort of you know the freedom of it. Is It really doesn't always happen. So yeah.
Yeah. Now, being on a cable network, I know you had some freedoms that you wouldn't have been able to have if it were on a broadcast network, as you could hear in some of the language and see in some of the gore. But I'm curious if there were any restrictions you had to keep in mind, either because of advertisers or because of certain words you could not say.
Right. Well, we couldn't say the F word, obviously, but it was fun creatively, because that gives, when Holly kind of like turns and starts to feel the Christmas spirit again, she starts talking like everybody in ornaments, which means she says fudge instead of the F word. So I had fun with that. But no, I mean, we say a lot of swear words. The only thing I heard, and again, because I wasn't on set, and I wasn't dealing with this, but I guess standards and practices or whatever had issues with how many nipples Satan Claus had. So that was a thing. I was not involved with that, since I had nothing to do with the costume or the creature. But yeah, that's the only thing I heard. But no, it's, and everything's sort of like innuendo. So there are things that, he wants to take a bite out of your apple. That, you know, I was like, all right, they let me have that. Cool.
Yeah. I mean, if you get a note about how many nipples Satan has, something's going right.
That's very funny. That's very funny. Yes, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, were there any difficult scenes to write or difficult parts of the process? I know you mentioned there were rewrites. So, did you have to rewrite things because of COVID?
Um, it's just rewriting is sort of the process that it's pretty standard in every project. No, it's just for budgetary, like if you couldn't get a location, that kind of thing. And like I said, um we had an actor that had booked another movie, and so ended up we weren't able to use him as much as we had liked. So we actually just had to change some stuff around for that. But yeah, I mean, but COVID wise, not really. It just had to do with cast availability and location availability. So
Okay. So, I know you said you were watching Hallmark movies. Were there other places you looked to for ideas while you were writing?
I mean, all the Christmas, that almost every cable channel now has Christmas movies, right? But Hallmark is, it's the gold standard. Um, I'm trying to think. I'm like I said, I've said it before, like 4 times in this interview, but Nightmare on Elm Street is a huge reference for me, and it's what I grew up as a kid loving. And so Freddy Krueger very much influenced this, and sort of over the top deaths, the sort of you know uh, set piece deaths are definitely in reference to Nightmare on Elm Street. But you know, I tend to write pretty much only female characters. I just find them more fascinating, maybe because I am not one, or I just have a lot of strong women in my life, including my sister. And So I think I, referenced all the kind of like badass girls in my life. I mean, I think Holly, she's fierce, and I think that was definitely inspired by all the ladies in my life. So yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street, women in my world, and Hallmark. That's kind of it.
That's, yeah. And yes, I did pick up on Holly was a very fun character to follow. And even the other female characters were really fun. Joy's whole seriousness about being a snowman building champion, that was
Yeah,
that
she
was wonderful.
medaled twice in Finland at the World Championship.
Yeah,
Um,
and I did notice some of the Freddy Krueger references with the one-liners and the ironic deaths. I also noticed a lot of practical effects, and I know that as the writer, you probably weren't in control of that,
mm-mm.
but that was cool to see. And then Holly, I don't want to get demonetized on YouTube or anything, but when she says it's on, which let's say,
Yeah,
I
that
don't know
is
YouTube's
to-
rules, so
that's total Freddy Krueger.
yeah.
That's I mean, I will say all of that was written when Satan was male. Um, so I'm actually glad that Satan is non-binary and not a woman, because I don't really like calling women the B word. So yeah, but yeah, that it's on, which with a different letter in front,
Give or take a letter, yeah.
misspelling just like Holly did. That was, yeah, total Freddy Krueger. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm a huge practical effects person. So I was happy that you know, they tried as much as they could to make it practical. Um, and again, I wasn't on set. The only on set I was on for the death scene were the baristas.
Oh,
So, um,
that
but
was also really fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're so silly, but
Yeah. And I even enjoyed the subtle gag of how Saucy Santa sounds like it's just the background music at first, but then you realize the characters can actually hear it.
right. Yeah, no, and yeah, I love music. I'm a sort of wannabe songwriter, and so the fact that I wrote in the script that it was called Sassy Santa, but I guess that didn't clear. So we made it Saucy Santa. But the fact that they made an original song for the movie, and then it becomes like in the beginning of the movie, it's sort of like the instrumental, like magical Christmassy version. You know what I mean? It sort of becomes the theme of the movie, and I just think um, Spencer, who did our was our composer, I thought he did a beautiful job. And but yeah, it was just like that is so me, and so just like so me playing fantasy by having an original song be sung by an actor. And and Mira McDonald, who played the mayor, she sang it. I think she was nervous, and I think she did a great job. It's so fun.
It is really fun. I was finding myself trying to listen to catch more of the lyrics. If there ever is a full version somewhere, I know some people who would definitely purchase it.
Yeah, no, I asked Spencer, I'm like, are we gonna have a soundtrack? But yeah, he's fantastic, and that's all him. He wrote that song and produced it, and it said, "Put your gingerbread man in my oven." I mean,
Yes.
that is nice. That's that's some genius work that I
Yeah,
am not take credit for. So
that was fantastic. And yeah, that shows kind of the strange rules working in TV sometimes. Sassy versus saucy, to
who
a lay
knew?
person, it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like, if anything, to me, saucy sounds a little more naughty than sassy does, but
Well, no, I think it was just in terms of copyright.
oh, I could, yeah.
But and another thing with copyright, the other thing that like they didn't approve is the parents, Holly's parents at the beginning. I said that the Nutcracker factory closed, and they're like, yeah, we can, there's a real nutcracker factory, I guess,
Oh,
in
wow.
Canada or something. I'm like, really? Okay. So it became a Christmas tree skirt factory, which what? But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, gosh, all the Christmas jobs were amazing. That was so fun to try to catch what everybody did, and um, then you had the character who had just a million jobs. When he's
Chris
not doing
Kringle.
this, he's doing this. Yeah,
He does
yeah.
it
I
all.
thought I thought it was Kringle at first, but it is Pringle, correct?
Yeah, I wanted people to go, wait, Chris Kringle? No, Pringle, like the chips. Once you pop, you can't stop. Again, that's just me like making myself laugh by having a really stupid name. So Chris Pringle and Chad Pringle. Yeah.
Yeah, and I loved how some of the makeovers were just putting a leather jacket on.
Oh yeah. You instantly turned, that's like that's a she's all that, you take out the ponytail and the glasses and then you're beautiful. But yeah, you just throw on that leather and you're good.
Yeah. We were talking about this a little bit, but what were some of the things that were present, I guess pun intended, in any version of the script that didn't make it into the final cut that maybe you'd like to mention?
Um, well, there was a very minor death for Sheriff Knoll,
Oh.
which didn't make it. Um, Originally, because of budgetary reasons, and again, it's like I was just like living out my fantasy by writing this thing. So Joy actually used, like, originally in the first script, she was like a champion ice skater, and so she had this whole like sequence where she's skating on the ice, and then again, totally referencing Nightmare on Elm Street. Satan Claus comes up from the broken, top of the lake and pulls her in. and then it all becomes bloody water underneath as
Wow.
the starts to crack and sort of recongeal into ice. But again, that's not a TV movie budget. So yeah, those are like the two ones that stick out in my head. Oh, there, and I don't know. Again, I wasn't there for most of the filming, but there was like once Holly is pegged as the killer, the Christmas killer, in the middle of the movie, like people like throw snowballs at her and like kind of heckle her, and that didn't make it, but that made me laugh writing it. But yeah, so those are some of them. But no, I mean, a lot of it's in there. So
Wow, that must be very satisfying as a writer to see the final product and know that a lot of what you put did end up in there. I know that doesn't always happen.
Yeah, and I have to say, Emma and the cast, I mean, there was definitely some improv. A line that I did not write, and I think it's really good. I don't know if, like, as a man, I'm glad I didn't write it, but I also think it's really, really funny, is talking about the vaping teens and Chad saying they're vapists, they don't know. And I'm like, vapists? I have never, and that was all Emma. And I like, it is genius. And I can't take credit for it. So
that was amazing. And I had to think for a second and just think, is that really what they're called? No, that can't be, because it sounds too much. Like something else.
Too much. But yeah, that's a line that I cannot take credit for, and it's really funny. So
yeah. Now, when I usually do a ton of research for my interviews, and when I tried to look this up, it was kind of difficult to find things, but I found a lot of people were live tweeting it, tweeting at you, tweeting at the different cast members. Mm-hmm. So you've clearly been privy to a lot of the audience reactions so far. So what amongst all of that has stood out to you so far, obviously with more coming in?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we get more. I was interviewed by the New York Times, and that is in print today. Apparently I need to go pick up a copy, which hopefully gets more eyeballs on it. I love that Letters to Satan Claus is mentioned in the New York Times. But it's genuinely positive, which is rare for what I see. I mean, I think people like to hate. I certainly don't. I'm not a troll type. I try to keep it very positive on Twitter, just because a friend of mine said to me once, think about whatever you tweet that your mom is going to read it. And I was like, that's a really interesting. And that's my friend Duppy Demetrius, who was a writer on Major Crimes with me. And he keeps it very positive. And so I try to subscribe to that, whatever, scribe to that. But yeah, it's been very positive. People wanting a sequel, feels nice. Like, to hear that is very nice. And I think the LGBTQ, like, sort of representation, people thanking us for that, and that's very cool. And yeah, people talking about the vape, like, people have been tweeting at me like, what did vaping teens ever do to you? I'm like, well, they shouldn't be vaping, okay? But so that's fun. But yeah, that just to look, it's a sci-fi horror comedy movie. It is not, an Oscar film. It knows what it is, and the year that we've all had, which has sucked, like, I don't think anyone's had a good 2020, and if they do, let me know how, and congratulations. But I literally think it's 90 minutes to escape and just get lost. And I think that's why people love Hallmark movies, because you're it's a fantasy, you know, and this is a different kind of fantasy where you're just, you know, it's a redonkulous experience. And you just, you know, it's not high art. It's literally just an escape from 2020. And hopefully, you know, people know that and feel that and hopefully laugh a little bit. Because
Yeah,
I know I know I need to laugh more. So
yeah, and it's definitely an escape with some edge to it as well, which kind of puts it in a different category than maybe turning on the Hallmark movies when you haven't had a good year.
right.
At least this one has that bit of an edge to it. Yeah, and gosh, I guess this is kind of personal, but I feel like I should mention this. When the joke about, I need to be careful how I say this in case this is taken out of context, but when cameraman Sam did not specify what kind of cancer it was and was just like, well, it's cancer, duh, uh, and that became a joke that when I laughed at that, I was actually very surprised that I laughed at it, and it felt good because a few months ago, my own best friend did pass away from colon
Oh,
cancer.
oh,
So
I'm
that was, yeah. And I feel like he would have really liked this movie. Uh,
sorry.
at the time he passed, we were talking about filming a movie where he was going to play a vampire, and he was so into it. He was so excited.
Mm, I'm
Um,
sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah.
yeah,
No, yeah, it's, you know, cancer is not funny.
right,
Again, it's poking fun of sort of all the Christmas movies where you know, it's, you don't get specific, they don't get specific, you know?
right.
Um, colon cancer is not funny, and I'm really sorry. That's ugh, yeah, but if you found some levity in that scene, you know, great. But yeah, yeah, it was definitely not a my intention to make fun of cancer or anything. It's really just poking fun of the the movies. So
Oh yeah, and that was very clear because even in mainstream Hollywood, excuse me, mainstream Hollywood movies, you see, even in Disney, you have the dead parent. Well, what happened? I don't know. Maybe a hot air balloon fell on him. Who knows?
right, right,
they're not here now.
yeah.
And so you
Hopefully
mentioned,
hopefully nobody's had a hot balloon air balloon fall on them. I hope that's not a real death.
yeah, I would think if those did happen, they're pretty rare. A hot air balloon's pretty small. You have to be in a very specific area and not move for that
Yes.
to happen.
Yeah.
So you talked about how people were asking you about a sequel. So have you had any thoughts about what you might write if there
Yeah.
is a Letters to Satan Claus 2? Is that kind of a possibility? Are there rumblings?
I think it all has to do with ratings and what sci-fi needs. Yeah, I have a I have a rough idea of what I want Letters to Satan Claus be. And
Fantastic.
um I actually have like a series idea that involved ornaments in
Oh,
general, not necessarily Satan Claus, but that's sort of based on the town, but a you know a sci-fi horror comedy based on ornaments. But yeah, so I have the ideas. We just need to hear from them. So that's it. You know.
yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, you've got the sequel title right in the original's title. That is forethought.
I do. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, but if not, they just go in my little folder, like most of my ideas, and you know, move on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
I am writing a right now. I'm writing a horror comedy feature with this Australian director named Nick Verso, who did a movie called Boys in the Trees, which is fabulous if people haven't seen it. I think it's on Netflix, but we're doing a movie called Prom Dress, which is based on a book, one of my childhood favorite YA horror novels, and I got the rights to it. And so yeah, that's what we're writing right now. So that's
Ooh.
something that I'm currently doing. Yeah, not writing any Satan Claus right now, but if they want it, they can get it.
Awesome. So where should people look for that? Do you have a distributor for that yet?
No, we're writing it, and then in the new year we'll go out to studios and streamers, and yeah, so we'll see. But we're excited about it. It's something that it's a project that I've had in my head for years. I got the rights to it 5 years ago, and then Nick kind of came into my life, and we just clicked. And it's a shout out to all those '90s prom movies, and yeah, it's basically about a cursed dress that makes you do bad things.
Oh, that's fun.
It's fun. It's very queer. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'll definitely be on the lookout for that. And with the prom coming out this year, it's
Yeah.
almost like Letters to Satan Claus, where it's slightly off, where someone might find it while looking for something else.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll see. Yeah.
So I guess that kind of covered my next question, but in case there's anything else, what is next for you?
That's it. And I have uh, multiple TV projects in development with producers and studios, and it's a numbers game, and you just never know what's gonna fly and what's not, and what's gonna die. So yeah, I'm writing constantly and always. So yeah, we'll see. But prom dress is what I'm most excited about, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll land somewhere. So I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, great. Well, maybe Syfy, who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah. Well, for the record, obviously I did really enjoy the movie, and after I watched it, I showed it to my family as well. My parents were having fun trying to figure out what was a reference. My mom is really into the Hallmark movies, so she was trying
Love it.
to figure out
Same.
all those references. Yeah.
Yeah.
My younger brother also really liked it. He really likes Krampus, so he was pointing out, like the cookie scene made him think of the
Hmm.
gingerbread man.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Krampus is great. I think Krampus is an excellent movie.
yeah, my most recent article on Horror Obsessive was about Krampus, so this was just watching this right after I wrote this article. It just fell right in line. I'm
Cool.
so glad I found out about it and watched it. If there is a sequel, I will definitely watch it. Uh,
Great.
and if I get news of any casting calls, you're going to see my face again.
All right.
Yeah. Uh, so this is again for Horror Obsessive or my YouTube channel, depending on where you're watching it. If you are watching it on my YouTube channel, please check out Horror Obsessive. And Mike, is there anything else you would like to plug or like to say?
No, I mean, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm Zara Talks at Zara Talks. It's a lot of letters to Satan Claus right now, but I usually talk about like obscure girl groups from the '90s and '80s, and yeah, my thighs. That's kind of what I usually tweet about. So
Great. If if you haven't seen Letters to Satan Claus, I'm going to get this up as soon as I can. It is airing on Syfy channel on Christmas Day. Otherwise, you can also stream it for free on their website. You can sign in with your cable or satellite provider, or you can use one of the free tokens that you get and watch it for free. I do recommend it. It's a really, really fun film. And whether you're a fan of horror or not, there's enough comedy in there that you'll find something to love. And if you do find if you are a big fan of the Hallmark movies, I think you'll enjoy this as well because it just throws everything together. There are so many things that we didn't even talk about that came into play. So thank you so much, Mike Zara, for talking with me today. I'm Jamie Lee, and I guess we're signing off. Thank
thank
you.
you so much. That was awesome.
Thank you so much for doing this. I really did enjoy the movie.
Thanks. Thank you.
But
Thanks for watching, and thanks for having me. Yeah.
yeah, but when I finished watching it, it was like 1 in the morning, and I thought maybe I should tweet him like in the morning.
You get, yeah, I don't get alerts on my phone anymore for Twitter. So yeah, I have to like log in to see, and yeah, there you were. So that was very nice.
Thank you.